Hello and welcome back to Anna Rose Reads the podcast. I am your host, Anna, and as always, I am thrilled to be delivering today's episode to you all. I am speaking with the one and only Mr. Paul Tremblay, the king of ambiguity himself, about his middle grade novel that hit shelves today, Another, and some of his other books as well because I absolutely had to. We talk a little bit about looking at his work as a whole, looking back, it's been, I believe, 10 years since A Head Full of Ghosts came out. So we did a little bit of reflective conversation as well as doing a deep dive into Another and why stories like Another are so important right now in the time of AI and beige everything and just boring, bland, um, kind of conformity. So yeah, that's what we talk about. I think that Another is a very punk middle grade novel. I love it so much, and I hope that you all enjoy our conversation. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm very excited to formally be interviewing you. I feel like I've spoken to you a few times in passing over social media and at StokerCon this year,
Yeah.
but it's exciting to have you on the podcast.
No, thanks. My pleasure to be here. Have we met in person before that? I felt like
No, I think I was just
no.
around.
Oh, like you didn't go to like Dark Ink last summer?
No, I really wish that I could have though. That looked like a fantastic event. Enough other social spaces online that it's
Sure.
it's all the
Yeah,
same,
yeah.
but
Well, as I said to you on social media, who had more fun than you did at StokerCon? I don't know.
no. That's very true. I do feel like my cheeks hurt a little bit from smiling so much by the time that I made it home. It was a
Nice.
very, very fun event for me getting to meet everybody in person. Did you have
Oh,
a good
good.
time as well?
Yeah. I did. It was sort of a whirlwind trip. It was a little weird. Like in my newsletter, I talked about how like the AI case thing was changing right before I
Yeah.
went to StokerCon, so it kind of put me in a weird mood. But no, it was great to see everybody.
Yeah.
The hotel was strange.
So weird.
Yeah.
So many people have asked me about it. I'm like, yeah, I didn't linger too long in some places because it just felt so strange.
Yeah.
Um,
Like I don't need much. Just I need a hotel that actually has food.
yeah,
And like to be able to walk to food too is would be nice.
yeah,
But next year, the spot where StokerCon is in Pittsburgh is amazing. There's hotel's awesome. There's tons of restaurants like within like, 5, 10 minute walk. Yeah.
yeah. That's what I've been hearing. But the real question is, will there be a void in the basement in like a liminal space like we found this year?
Yeah, and someone apparently touched goo in the parking garage.
I can
It's like,
believe that.
yeah,
Yeah,
don't touch the goo.
I legit found an
Yeah.
open pocket knife walking to my car to leave. I like took a
Uh,
picture of it. I was like, oh,
yeah.
this might be handy one day. This might be part of a crime. Who knows? Um, but
One
anyway,
never knows. Yeah.
recounting Stoker is very fun, but I am here today to talk to you about your book that's coming out, Another. It's a middle grade novel. And also people probably know who you are, but in case people don't know who you are, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Paul Tremblay, horror writer. Yeah, I've written some other stuff too, but mainly horror writer, I guess. Geez, 10 years ago, the summer, A Head Full of Ghosts came out. That was my first book with William Morrow, and geez, we're up to like 10 or 11 now,
Yeah.
which is crazy. 10 years, it's both like so short and so long ago.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a weird feeling. Like, 'cause I know I was watching something the other day that came out in like 2010 and I was like, that was 15 years ago and it doesn't
Right?
feel 15 years ago. So
Yeah.
I can only imagine in the span of books it might feel a little different.
No, for sure. Like, yeah, it's just a weird, temporal thing. Like some of the things I remember are so vivid, like the selling of the book and things like that. But, then so many other things are blurs. But
Yeah.
no, I'm happy. Thank you for reading.
Oh, no, of
Yeah,
course.
for reading the books as we go. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're here to talk about your middle grade novel, Another. This is a really, really cool book. Yes, there it is. I really, really connected with this book. And
Thank you.
I'm trying to be more of a middle grade horror reader. I'm trying to, read more from that age demographic. But ultimately, what led you to write this story and like what was your point of inspiration for Another?
Yeah, so there's like a two. I mean, one was like the image that led to the story, but before that, friend Mallory O'Meara.
Hmm.
writer and friend. She used to live she grew up, or she was in New England. That's how I met her, and then she moved to LA. And she wrote The Lady from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah.
I'm butchering the title, but it was about the woman who actually designed the Black Lagoon suit and how, she was hidden, by the men in the FX industry, et cetera. So anyway, and she's written other books too. Anyway, I think it was at Storyfest in Connecticut like 2 or 3 summers ago, where she was like, "Oh, you have to read this book. It's called The Nest by Kenneth Apple, and it's middle grade." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. Like I'm sure you get your friends give you tons of book
Hmm.
recommendations.
Yes.
So don't always follow through because you get so many." But like Mallory, like literally just mailed me a copy. Said you have to read this. Like, okay, if you're gonna go that far, then I'll definitely read it. Yeah, and so I didn't know what to expect because like I haven't really read any middle grade since I don't know, like Coraline. Is that considered middle grade? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to name that author who won't be named, but anyway, so happily, The Nest is beautifully written, really scary, and I was like, oh, I didn't know you could do that in middle grade, and that was just sort
Hmm.
of like in the back of my head. Fast forward to it was the spring of 23. I got to take a year off, sabbatical from school because of the filming and the movie
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Knock at the Cabin, and I finished horror movie super early because I had the year off like 4 months early. It's like, oh, what the hell am I gonna do now? I mean, it was a good problem to have. And I don't know, I just had this weird sort of scene it playing in my head, that is a big part of the book. It's not a huge spoiler, but like had this image of a strange old man showing up at a kid's house, like a lonely kid's house, and with a burlap sack, and he's like, "Oh, I have a new playmate for you." And he opens it up, and it's like this weird clay mannequin kind of. It's alive, I guess, moves, but, it doesn't have like facial features beyond what like you might see on a mannequin, right? Indentations for eyes, like a ridge for a nose, and the kid could like sort of sculpt stuff. And then, I don't know, I think like for a lot of writers, when we get ideas, we're always excited. But for me, the test is I try not to go after it right away. Like I try
Hmm.
to give it a little bit of the test of time. Like if I find myself still thinking about it a few weeks
Yeah.
later, that's usually the sign, okay, I can see myself spending, a year or and this book it's shorter, so maybe half a year, with it. Yeah, so sorry, that was a long answer, but
No, no, we love
yeah.
long answers here. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think you said it's a COVID book. It's set like kind of post COVID, kind of
Hmm.
coming out the pandemic. And we follow Casey, who is like in middle school, I believe, and he's had like this weird Zoom encounter. And I feel like it's such like a like weird moment in Amber that you captured of like nobody really knows what they're doing
Hmm.
post-COVID. Like nobody knows how to think, nobody knows how to feel, nobody knows how to be. And then on top of that, like especially for children who are like getting their footing in the world, I feel like you really captured that with Casey's character. What like did you have an inspirational point for him, like how to base him, or like how did you approach his character within
Yeah.
this very grand context of like where the world is?
Yeah. So again, thank you. So with that original scene that I described, like, okay, I had to figure out who the story was going to be about. So that was going to be Casey. Um, and one of the main questions I had was like, why was he feeling so alone and isolated that he would sort of accept,
Right.
obviously there's something supernatural happening too, but why would he accept this, this clay boy? Like, is he so desperate for friendship? And so, and then it sort of just clicked for me. It's like, oh, it's he was bullied. It's taking place during, as you mentioned, like really like fall of 2020, spring of 21. Um, and it became a book I didn't know I needed to write. Because for a while I was joking that I'd already written my pandemic novel, Survivor Song, but I wrote it before the pandemic happened. But yeah, I mean, this book I don't think is very didactic. Hopefully it's not. The pandemic is mentioned, but it's like 5% of the book, if that. Really, the
Hmm.
main focus of the book is inside Casey's house during school vacation week, him and Moral together. But yeah, no, it really became a book that I needed to write. Just about like how hard it was being a teacher and a student and a parent, during those two
Yeah.
years. I mean, I got to sort of see sort of all levels and, how hard it was for so many of my students, especially when they were remote, and how hard it was for some kids to come back. And just also within, without naming names, people within my own family, like, nieces, nephews, my own kids. Yeah. I mean, everybody has those stories, but as you said, I think you put it in a very good way. Like no one knew what was best to do, but we were all just trying our best. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like my mom's an educator. Like she taught for forever, and I mean, she kind of came like her career was winding down, whenever COVID happened, and to see her
Hmm.
kind of also grapple with it, I think too was interesting. And so I don't want to like pry too personally, but like
Yeah.
for a teacher, I imagine it had to be pretty hard, right? Like not only navigating the curriculum and teaching, but like feeling like you're reaching your kids, you know?
Yeah. I mean, so like my school is pretty, I would say atypical than most,
Hmm.
because it's a small, private, all boys school. So the classes are pretty small, but like we went back full in person, I think, probably one of the first schools. I mean, September of 2020, we were
Yeah.
full back in person, which was not the case. Like my daughter went to public school and she was hybrid the whole way, right? Some
Yeah.
kids in, some kids out. Um, so in some ways, especially when it got toward like November, December, like my school, because they had money, that they could afford to test everybody in the school
Yeah.
once every 2 weeks, and which made me feel better, but also at the same time, there was just that constant worry, who's not wearing their mask correctly and
Right. Yeah.
all that stuff. Um, yeah, and it was weird that first year. I mean, it was more like I'm just in a race to get out of here. I'm doing what I
Yeah.
can while I'm in school, but there wasn't, you couldn't hang around to give extra help and do stuff like that. Yeah, no, so it was super hard.
Yeah, and it certainly seems that way from the outside perspective,
Yeah,
and I think I find horror in general really thrives in isolation. Like you can just kind of go batshit if you want with the things
right.
that you can come up whenever somebody's kind of losing their mind in isolation. So I think, like you said, the setting of COVID or post-COVID, however you want to phrase it, is only 5% of the book, but I think it does a lot of work to set that feeling of isolation up for
Yeah.
Casey. And then you bring in Moral. Is it Morel or Morel? Moral? I can't.
I don't know. Like when I did a reading at StokerCon, I think I started off, I think it's moral. Like I said
Okay.
morel when I first started reading it, and then halfway through the reading I changed to moral because I
Okay.
can't pronounce words. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Moral, whenever he shows
Yeah.
up, like you said, he's this kind of like amorphous blob, like a canvas if it was a person, kind of like a mannequin. How, and I know that you mentioned that that was like some of your first inspiration, but how did you kind of land on how he would present throughout the story? I don't want to say what it is because I don't want to spoil, but
Yeah. So I like the bare bones of an idea of, sort of a somewhat of like a riff on a body snatcher kind of story.
yeah.
But moral, as I went through the story, was sort of the biggest surprise, like what happened with his character.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, because I think he's, a lot more complicated than I anticipated that he was going to be, without getting too spoilery.
Yeah.
With Casey, I felt like I knew I was going to dig in and, put a lot of my own sort of both experience as a teacher, my own kids, and also myself, what I was like when I was in middle school, which I still sort of remember. That was sort of baked in and sort of easy. So yeah, moral. Uh, that was like that was a cool, sort of fun, unexpected thing. What happens with him?
Yeah. I like the way that you created his character arc. I like the place that he ends up. I think that it was a really it wasn't an expected place that he would end up, and I was very glad that you took the road that you did. I'm gonna
Yeah,
put it like that to be very broad and
yeah.
not spoil
Well,
anything.
thanks.
I know it's kind of sucks
Right.
for people who haven't read it, but
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I can joke that like, if this was an my adult version novel, obviously maybe it would be ambiguous and like it would be a horrible ending. But at some point I figured, oh, I'm probably writing a middle grade novel. Wasn't right away, but at some point it's like, well, the kid's got to survive and it's got to
yeah,
be a somewhat happy-ish ending. Not to say that people don't still have scars, but
right.
happily, like I joke, but also that's what the story needed. Like I hope my mantra, my goal is always to try to give the story what it needs, or at least convince myself this is the best way to write this story. Whether or not I'm right or not, I have to convince myself of that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And I think too for Casey and his character, and this is I don't think this is a spoiler to say this, but what it really kind of boils down to is, he's feeling incredibly isolated. He has Morel show up and it's feeling like he's not as remembered or important as he once was, and that it kind of gets worse before it gets better for him, right?
Right.
And it takes him relying upon his feelings of individuality and his talent as like kind of an artist, right? He kind of has to lean into that to work his way out of the situation or to understand what's going on. And that feels so incredibly poignant and perfect for today's day and age. We all have feelings on AI and generalization and kind of like this like beige
Mhm.
painting that we're painting over everything. Was out of the four. I mean, it feels like it was at the forefront of your mind when you were telling the story. It feels like it's more than just about isolation and things like that. But I wanted to hear from you, like how big of a role that plays in the story.
Yeah, I mean, for some of it was me trying to figure out, like, how is Casey going to sort of hold on to himself and to sort of lean into who he is, as you very eloquently described. Although I'll be quick to say, not in an Ayn Rand kind of individualist way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, him sort of holding. I think that's a struggle that we all have in the digital age. Is like, who are we, like, on all these screens, and like, what is ourself, and like, to figure out who you are and hold on to that core is as important for a 12-year-old as it is for however old I am.
Yeah.
um, so as far as like some of the AI stuff, like I started the book, like I said, in the early spring of 23, and I first joined the AI lawsuit I was a part of for a couple of years
Hmm.
in June of 23. So I didn't finish the book or a draft until like August. I had to take a few weeks off because I got a concussion, which is a whole other story. Um, yeah, so I mean, some of that, AI sort of stuff, leaked in.
Yeah.
But the importance of art and what it means, not only to the artist, but to the person viewing the art.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's for everybody, right? Like I'm reading it and I'm like, oh my God, I relate. Like I feel that,
Thanks. Yeah, I,
you
I mean
know?
that's the hope, I think. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of like to joke that might be your most punk book. Paul Bear's Club better watch
I love
out.
that. Thank you.
Because this one feels pretty strong in its messaging in that way. And the other thing too that you do really, really well with another, and I think it's balanced pretty well, but there was a scene in particular between Casey and Morrill when they're kind of like Casey's kind of figuring out what he is and like what he can do and who he's becoming and stuff. And
Hmm.
it's like he has this moment of existential dread of like, oh, this is what I'm dealing with. Like, and this vast like chasm of nothing almost opens up before his eyes, like
Hmm.
metaphorically and kind of literally. How do you tackle that in a middle grade novel? Like, I'm just kind of curious from the writer's standpoint, like how, because I know your other books, it's pretty, you go
Hmm.
there, but like it felt very well balanced in this. So I'm kind of curious
Thanks.
how that felt for you.
I appreciate it. I mean, I think. I just wanted to, because I am a teacher. I'm not usually teaching sixth graders, but sometimes it's as young as seventh grade, which isn't that far off. I mean, but every year is obviously a big change. But
Yeah.
I don't know, to respect Casey's intellect and to respect, those
Hmm.
readers' intellect. I mean, I think, just assume. I always try to assume that the reader is smarter than I am. So, that means, on a small level, that means like not having characters do stupid things, or at least things that I think are stupid. Um, but also just to acknowledge, like, yeah, these are like the really sort of deep, weird thoughts we have, especially alone at night in your bedroom with a weird, creepy mannequin thing, across the room from you. So, yeah, thank you. I don't know, some of it's, you're just going with the flow, like when you have an
Hmm.
idea for a certain scene or something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah.
It feels like a very like practical fear that Casey has, and then like he has these moments of like a greater like,
Mm.
oh, I don't know how to get out of this. This is gonna be a forever kind of existential dread, which I think is
Yeah.
interesting to read in this context, you know?
And not a huge spoiler, but like is what he assumes are his like his safety nets really
Yeah.
are
Hmm.
compromised or aren't there because his older sister Allie, who is super close with, is at college. I mean, she is super supportive, but she's hundreds of miles away, and weird stuff's happening with his parents at the same time to make
Yeah.
it for Casey to feel like, oh, I'm even more alone in this kind of thing.
Yeah, well, it's that special feeling of dread of like home is not your home, really. You know, like
Right.
the place I'm supposed to be safest, I'm not, which is ironically a haunted house story kind of theme, but
Mm.
this is a little different. It seems like, but
Yeah.
in many ways they kind of hit on the same thing. And another kind of tropish thing, I guess I could say that I picked up on whenever I was reading is there's a rotary phone, like an old school phone, that is kind of a focal piece in this story that is quite disturbing. And in my head, when I read about it, I could just picture like the Goosebumps cover of that book, kind of like, like they had like Night of the Living Dummy 1, 2, and 3,
Mhm.
like that phone just changing angles with every Goosebumps cover. And I feel like the story could easily become like a cursed object story around that phone. Were you ever tempted to kind of like take that angle?
No, I mean, Casey and Morrill were the thing, and like the phone grew more in importance when I kind of had to figure out. hey, like why would the parents accept this? And like,
Hmm.
so some of that just grew out of some of the logic experiment of trying to figure out pieces of the story. But yeah, as soon as I had, the mom purchased this antique rotary phone. It was like, oh yeah, none of these kids are gonna know what a rotary phone is. They're gonna have to explain it. Actually, had fun watching some YouTube videos of parents like putting this rotary phone in front of
Yeah.
kids and like, see how long it takes them to figure out how to use it kind of thing.
The most upsetting thing though is like when you ask kids like, "Hey, like how do you answer the phone?" and they'll hold up their hand like flat like this and they hold it to their ear instead of holding it like
Oh,
a
really? I haven't
phone
even noticed
nowadays.
that part. Yeah.
Yeah, if you like I forget when the cutoff is, like what year it is, but it's whatever generation after that year, like they will hold up a flat palm to the side of their face instead of the thumb, like the kind of like hangout sign, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Crazy.
That makes sense. Oh man, I haven't even considered that. That's nuts.
It's very depressing, in
Yeah.
my opinion. Oh man. Okay. So I think that that about wraps up my questions about another. I of course have questions about all of your work in general, and I know a lot of people point to A Head Full of Ghosts as like your biggest work, your most, and I agree that that book is phenomenal, but your book that
Thank you.
hit the hardest for me and like that I still think about probably like at least once a week is Disappearance at Devil's Rock. That book got me real bad, and I don't know if it's like the Lake Mungo-ness of it all. I don't,
Mm.
it's hard for me to say exactly what it is, but reflecting back on your work, when you look at Disappearance at Devil's Rock, how does that feel?
Again, thank you so much. I mean, the fun part about that book, uh, I mean, it came out a year after Head Full of Ghosts, and Head Full of Ghosts was still like finding people, so I think it probably wasn't probably should have been 2 years in between.
Hmm.
But I mean, the cool part is the people who like that book really seem to like it. Because I mean, I hear that occasionally, like, oh,
Yeah.
like this is my favorite book of yours, which is so fun to hear, because it was so hard to write for me. Uh, yeah, probably just because I'd never done like a third person, like all these different characters, and just had a real hard time. Like that's the book that changed the most in the editing phase and stuff
Hmm.
like that. Just I didn't get the ending right the first time. So no, I thank you. I'm so glad it works for you. Um, yeah, no, I mean I do like that book. I'm proud of it. It's a scary book, for me as just even the real life stuff of it,
Yeah.
like a parent having someone go missing, and you worry like what your new teenage kids or who they're hanging out with, if they're hanging out with the quote unquote wrong person.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and
so a lot of stuff went into that.
yeah, and just it's to me it's the strong imagery of like when you walk into a room and it's still like kind of hazily dark and it's kind of a little bright
Yeah.
and you make out what you think is a shape and like maybe it moves, maybe it doesn't. And like that scene in particular, like the pivotal one that kind of drives the whole book at the very beginning of the book just
Mm.
sticks with me so far into this. And I can't help but kind of think of Merle a little bit whenever I think about that because it's again that amorphous
Yeah.
blob shape, right? Like that you can't make out what it is.
Right.
Do you
Yeah.
like relate the two in your mind at all?
I haven't, but that makes total sense. But what I have noticed fairly recently, and I think the only book that maybe doesn't do this is Cabin at the End of the World, is like almost all my books and stories, it ends up with somebody's alone in a dark room and
Yeah.
either seeing something just off or something weird. And I mean, horror movies got the big,
Yeah.
the big extended scene of it, and I don't know, is to me that's still like the scariest thing.
Yeah, horror
Both like
movies have
being
it too,
alone
but
and being in the dark and like, could be a metaphor for approaching death, etc. But yeah, but
yeah.
also it's just like I don't know what's in there.
Yeah. It's something about the shapelessness of it too, I think that really bothers me. I think that that's
Yeah,
something that really disturbs me on a like I can't name it, I can't see it, I can't feel it, I can't there's no words for it, you know what I mean?
right.
Yeah. But that's very much why I mean for many other reasons too. I mean Disappearance of Devil's Rock just is packed with emotion, on top of the genuine kind of frightfulness
Well,
of
thank
it.
you.
Looking back kind of at your career, you mentioned that it's been 10 years since Head Full of Ghosts has come out. Do you feel like you'll return to the middle grade genre? Do you think that you'll keep going straight with horror? Like what do you see yourself doing in the future?
I don't have any like direct plans to go back to middle grade.
Hmm.
I'd prefer, to stick with adult novels, but never say never. Like,
Yeah.
at some point in the next few years, I'll probably be quitting teaching. If I've got more time and another idea sort of serves itself up, then yeah, certainly never say never. But I've spent so much time on this adult novel I just turned in. I'm waiting for the edits, and I have another adult novel due in a year, so I'm trying to gear up for that.
Is
I can
this
only
the
do like one thing at a time.
Yeah, is this the one that was announced with your book deal like earlier like
Yeah,
this
so
week?
yeah, Dead but Dreaming
Yeah.
of Electric Sheep.
Yeah.
I turned that into my editor like 3 weeks ago, so I'll probably get back from her in another couple of weeks.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's supposed to be July next year.
yeah. I actually read Alex Gonzalez's Wrecked off of your blurb. And then when I read the premise for
Uh,
Dead But Dreaming of Sheep, I was like, "Oh, this feels like shared DNA to that story in a way."
Interesting. I mean, I love Alex's book. How his is really riffs on the sort of the scariness of the internet.
Yeah.
Um, and what you can see and what you can find on it. I'm sure like so many books are going to be coming about the internet and AI, et cetera, within the next couple of years. There's a book coming out from Titan. I don't know if it's coming out in the US though, but it's called Basilisk.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Basilisk. John Langan makes fun of me when I try to pronounce that word, bastard. That's another one where there's like, the internet and how information and, being hacked and all this stuff is, a super scary book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, tonally, Dead But Dreaming is very different than Wrecked.
Yeah.
I really hope that a big chunk of the book is really funny. Like I'm really trying to mix, literary humor with, science fiction and horror, and it's
Mhm.
going to be suitably disturbing and all that too. But I don't know, some of the scenes, I don't know if it's a good or bad sign. I really got a kick out of. They make me laugh, which I guess is obnoxious to say that I'm laughing at my own stuff, but 'cause I never get scared about my own stuff. But
Yeah.
my
That's
stuff
a
can make me laugh.
That's a question that I have frequently for horror authors. I'm like, do you ever
Yeah,
freak yourself out? But I think that it's a good sign if you make yourself laugh. I mean, I would
yeah.
say it points well.
I mean, it's weird that I wouldn't. I mean, because when I say like I don't, the stuff I'm writing doesn't scare me because I'm too close, I can see the gears. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like horror and humor are so close. Like it's almost like the
Oh
same
yeah.
rhythms and beats and the same setup instead of like a punchline. It's, something horrific happening. Yeah, so I don't know what the difference is there.
Well, we'll find out whenever it comes
Yeah.
out. But no, but it's funny that you say that about humor and horror though, because I think the similarities between the two rely a lot on timing, like really on time, like landing the beats of, like when moments
Mhm.
of levity, like in the release too, right? Like either the catharsis or like the laugh of like, oh, the moment's passed, whatever. So I'm always interested whenever horror, and I feel like we see it more in movies sometimes, like with Scream, like that was like the biggest riff on horror that you could
Yeah.
get. But I'm always interested whenever horror gets and humor get pulled off really well in books. So.
Yeah, I get picky with it. I mean, because I mean, there are things. I tend to, so Scream is a really good example. That's both scary and funny. Like
Yeah.
I think too many horror comedies, I think the easy thing is to make the horror ridiculous so you're laughing. It's not really scary. You're laughing at the horror genre sort of elements of it.
Right.
As opposed to, I think it's much harder to be, hey, this is scary when it's supposed to be and it's funny when it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a very fine line to walk, I
yeah,
feel like, to not be too self-referential, to still take yourself seriously enough to be scary.
yeah,
Yeah. So I'm interested to see what that book is about then.
yeah.
Um, and then kind of, also again, looking back across your work, I feel like another is a book that says a lot, and I feel like it's really timely for younger readers. We spoke about individuality and your need to kind of be, unique within context and things like that. But whenever you look across your work, what is your hope that your work says about you or that you've accomplished with your work? That's a really prolific, big question, but I feel like
Yeah.
you've just written so much across so many different ideas, and all your stories really get at the humanity of like some of the darker parts of the human condition. So I'm kind of curious what your overarching view of your work is like.
Um, Thank you. I mean, that is kind of hard. I mean, I think honestly, what I just worry about is, for me, because I'm still like a cranky old Gen Xer, I don't ever want to feel like I'm selling out, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Like, so to me, like selling out means compromising on a story because you think it might upset people or disturb them too much or it won't be as popular. Um, and I'm proud to say I've not once made a decision story-wise because of those things.
Hmm.
Like I've just always really tried to stay laser focused on if I think this is the best way to tell the story, then this is the way it's going to be told. Again, like it's not going to be perfect, but at the end of the day, like most of the books come as close to saying what I imagined they were going to say.
Hmm.
So that's what makes me feel good. And honestly, like if there are people that I really respect, whether it's writers or readers, I value their opinion. If they like it, I mean, I don't write with an audience in mind, other than maybe
Yeah.
like a really small cohort of people that, it's like, oh, their opinion really matters to me.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. I think it's really admirable to try and or make the effort every time, like the very knowledgeable effort, the conscious effort to honor the story before you or even like the art before you, like whatever it is, right? Because it's hard sometimes to not be swayed, like even unconsciously, about
Yeah.
whatever's going on around you. Do you find like you're ever dealing like with unconscious or are you pretty good about knowing what you want and go and get it?
Oh no, they definitely, those thoughts kind of creep in. I try to fight them off, and frankly, like other people are going to make the more, they're going to be thinking more sort of market sales wise anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm knock on wood, very lucky that like again, I've never changed anything because of what a sales department said.
Yeah.
My editor has been amazing. She's not heavy-handed at all. She's been there to help when I really needed it, but
Mm-hmm.
also she doesn't just make suggestions of change just to do it, like if it's not needed. Um, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I guess it's just going to get harder. I mean, it's kind of in a weird way, a little bit thrilling because I think now part of the job is okay. I got to make sure I write something that AI can't write.
Yeah.
Um, it's a which I think that's important. I mean, and that's not necessarily just to me like it has to have like typographical tricks, which I usually have.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking
Anyway,
the same thing when you said that.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think obviously every writer's ego is like, oh, AI could never replicate what I do, which I mean, I think everyone's going to want to hope to think that, but
Hmm.
that's a little challenge that you have, and just a reminder, like, hey, look, it's entertainment, it's art. I mean, that line is so blurry,
Yeah.
but I mean, I don't know. I would assume most people, if they really thought about it, like hopefully a large part of the appeal is that, hey, another person wrote this. There's this weird communication that goes on between us. Like, I don't care how well written it is or how many twists and how oh wow, look at all these things that an AI story, it would never land with me because
Hmm.
when I read something or watch something, I'm like, oh, that person feels like I do or
Yeah.
recognizes the things that I recognize, and that gives me hope. So if a machine spits that out, I couldn't care less. Like it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point of art, and it's been actually really disappointing to hear some people describe writing and art in much lesser terms and people who should know better, frankly.
Hmm.
But anyway,
Well, I mean, honestly, sitting in the reader's seat, right? The reason that like I try to review or promote or do whatever is to make sure that if somebody's looking for a book that I've read and they don't know that it's out there, then like, hey, maybe I can like point them in the right direction, right? Because that feeling that you do
yeah,
get when you find somebody who writes something that you agree with or that you like resonates with you, you can't put a price tag on that. Like I had
yeah,
that happen today. Like I read Neil McRoberts' Good Boy today, and like I had tears streaming down my face. I was just
hmm,
so emotionally touched by that book.
yeah,
And it's not super often that you come across stories that make you feel like that. So I feel like that's the whole reason that we should be doing it is the human component of it, much like you said, and the connection of it, instead of the isolation and the entertainment kind of crank
yeah.
out machine.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I mean, as a reader, I'm so excited. Hope she follows through with it. But I talked my daughter into reading Our Share of Night by Mariana
Yeah.
Enriquez, and so I've had to stop myself from asking, "Hey, where are you now? Like at what part?" Um, but it was so exciting that this person, one of the loves of my life, is going to read this book that I love so much, and yeah,
Yeah, that book is incredible, man. I don't know that I don't know that I ever will, and certainly before that never have read a book like that. That's
yeah. I
that
just
just
finished my third read of it.
wide open. I
Um,
mean,
yeah,
it just covers so much ground. It's incredible. And I've just discovered like her short fiction within the last year, so like I need to catch up on her other collections. But I loved A Sunny Place for Shady People. That was like one of
yeah,
my favorite reads from last year. So yeah, big
yeah.
respect to her.
Go back to her first collection in the opening story, Dirty Kid.
Yeah,
Like the first thing I ever read by her was like, oh, I'm going to read everything she writes
yeah.
just based on that one story. Yeah.
It's such a special feeling whenever you find that, though. It's like
Yeah,
immediately you look up an author's backlist of like, now I have to deep dive on this.
yeah.
Yeah, no, she's definitely one of them. And kind of like since we're on the topic, what have you been reading lately? And like, also, I also like to ask authors how like what they read impacts what they write. Like, so if you're writing right now, do you kind of watch what you read? Are you selective about it? You know, that kind of thing.
Um, I try to read pretty widely. I definitely don't avoid reading stuff when I'm writing.
Hmm.
I try actually, usually, not every time, but usually I'm looking for things that are close to mine. And I don't, I look for little sparks, little magpie pieces to take, or borrow, I should say.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, that was the case with The Head Full of Ghosts. Like I was just reading like other possession stories and watching all the movies. I guess the only one was Survivor Songs because I've seen so many zombie movies. I didn't feel like
Yeah.
I had to read zombie stuff. But no, reading for me is that's how I learned how to write. I mean, I was a math
Hmm.
major. I learned to read by just writing like, amazing books. Um, so it's funny. So we talked about the book I turned in. I need to start a new book. I have a general idea, but I wanted to reread three books first and do some other weird research too. So I just reread two giant books. One is Roberto Bolaño's 2666.
Hmm.
Um, it's like 360,000 words.
Yeah.
uh, I would describe it as sort of horror adjacent. Like it's certainly not marketed as a horror novel,
Yeah.
but I mean, it definitely goes super close, and it's so disturbing in many places and just amazing, and hard, and nasty at times, but just a piece of genius. And same with, I just reread Mariana's book too,
Yeah.
um, in an older 80s book. So that's been my June. It was a little bit of my rewards, like, oh, when I finish this damn book, Debit Dreaming, because it ended up being so much longer than anything I've written.
Yeah.
And that it really, like, April and May were a sprint for
Yeah.
me. So my reward is like, oh, I'm going to read these giant doorstops again. But it was great because I mean, I love those books.
Yeah. It's nice. It's nice to get lost in a book for a while, like a longer book, you know.
Yeah,
I really
yeah, I like short books, like most
yeah.
people. Like I mean, listen, I'm no different than anybody else who's had their attention span whittled by social media.
Yeah.
But like those two books that I mentioned reminded me of the unique experience of living in a book for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think Our Share of Night is probably one of my like that and The Stand, I think within the last like year have been the longest that I've spent reading
yeah.
books. Obviously because of their size, but just like in general they cover so much. So
Those are
like
long
quite
ones. Yeah,
frankly, you can't move on as quickly
right.
as you would want. But yeah, no, I've kind of like really this year I've really gotten an appreciation for short fiction because I had a hard time before jumping like in collections from short story to short story and
Yeah.
especially like in anthologies too whenever it was like very tonally different across some stories. But for whatever reason this year my brain has finally like shifted into appreciation mode for those. And I've really gotten to enjoy a novella form or like short fiction, you know. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's just because we've had so many like anthologies that have come out this year or collections and things like that, but I'm on board with it now. I'm cool.
Nice. Yeah.
You have a story in the Stan anthology
I
that's coming
do.
out as well.
Yeah. No,
And I
very
believe it
excited.
has some ties to Paul Bearer's Club. I believe I've heard you
It
say
does.
before.
What the hell is the title of my story? This is so bad. Because it's sort of like almost like an Eric LaRocca kind of title. Like it's sort of long,
Yeah.
if not a full sentence, a
Yeah.
full flowery sentence. It's so bad I can't remember my own title of the story.
No,
But yeah, yeah. So when I was invited to it, I was like, oh, yes, but also almost paralyzed. Like, what am I going to do? A stand turned me into a reader,
yeah.
never mind like a writer. So honestly, my only way in was to be a little self-indulgent and be like, well, they wanted us, the rule was, because there's two different versions of the stand,
Hmm.
the abridged and unabridged,
Yeah.
and King wanted the unabridged to be the canon, the one that actually takes place, the flu outbreak happens in 91,
Hmm.
as opposed to the book in the 70s. I forget when the unabridged came out, what year it was supposed to be. Anyway, so I was like, oh, 91. I know a couple of characters that were kicking around then. Yeah, so I ended up writing like sort of an alternate or a stand universe, Mercy Brown and Art Barbara story. Uh,
I
yeah.
love that very much. I have to ask, what was the feeling? I mean, like you kind of already said, but just to elaborate on it a little bit more, to be approached to write in a world like the stand. Like, how does that feel? Like, where do you even start? Where do you begin? Like, do you feel pressure? Do you feel, oh, just, do whatever because it's the stand, like,
Yeah, I mean, like it was like a hell yes without thinking about it. Then it was like, oh no, what am I going to do? Sort of, kind of thing. Exactly what you said. Um, so no, I'm super excited to read other people's. I'm very jealous. I wish I had the idea, but apparently, I think Catriona Ward wrote a anthropomorphic animal
hmm
story. So I'm super excited. I'm a sucker for those. It sounds like Nat Cassidy wrote something really interesting. They had to get permission, especially from King, to do.
I've heard that as well.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and Tim Levin's in space. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what everybody else did.
Yeah, I feel like it just kind of blows the lid off of a already, ginormous world. It just kind of
Yeah.
catapults it into a whole entire another stratosphere. But yeah, that'll be a really big release, and I'm really excited. I think just knowing everybody else's excitement, if that makes sense, like knowing the
Yeah.
authors that are excited to play in this like sandbox is really cool just to see it
Sure.
happen.
I think what made it unique or makes it unique and exciting is it's a specific book. Because I'm sorry if I'm forgetting other ones, but so this is the third sort of story in someone else's universe I've played in.
Yeah,
But the other two are very generalized universes. Like it wasn't a specific story or book. Like
right.
I had a story in The Children of Old Leech, which was an anthology set in like, uh, Laird Barron's
Yeah,
world
yeah,
of
yeah.
stuff. And then more recently, I had a story in the Shirley Jackson
Yes.
anthology, which is, again, it wasn't like, hey, everyone's writing on Hill House. It's, you're trying to write a story that sort of honors Jackson, which is different. Like if they had said, hey, here's a anthology where the stories are sort of inspired by King and his work, it's not the same as here, you're writing in the universe or the world of The Stand.
Yeah, there's some rules in place and there's some like boundaries
Yeah,
that you kind of have to acknowledge and abide by to write that
right.
story. So, no, the writing exercise part of it, like I kind of can't help but stop thinking about. But I'm also just like really thrilled that everybody gets the chance to do that because everybody's just got such respect for that book, like what it did for post-apocalyptic fiction and like, outbreak horror and flu horror and disease
Yeah.
horror and everything else, like it's just so
We,
huge.
we got paid to write fan fiction.
Yeah, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
That's the best way I've seen it put. That's
Yeah.
perfect. Oh man. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for your time. I think that hits all the questions that I had for you.
All right.
What does the rest of your 2025 look like? Obviously, another's coming out, but what
Yeah.
else you got going on?
So another's coming out, well, at the day we're recording this, it's 3 weeks away, which
Yeah.
is, so July 22nd. So I do a little bit of a tour for that, which will be
hmm
fun. Um, I'll be doing a couple of appearances when the Stand anthology comes out in August as well.
hmm
Um, yeah, otherwise it's, for me, it'll be in my head, it's like I'll get edits for Dead But Dreaming of Electric Sheep at some point. And then the copy edits in the fall at the same time, trying to start the next book. Um, yeah, so that part will be busy. And I'm excitedly looking forward to, hopefully, I assume it's going to happen, but at some point this summer, um, the people involved doing an announcement about the option and adaptation of horror movie.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm just like chomping at the bit to scream about it because for me, it's
yeah,
a dream setup of people
really.
involved. Yeah.
That make you saying that makes me excited because I know I think I know what you mean by dreams out of people.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really,
Yeah.
really exciting.
And so, and a head full of ghosts could go in the fall. Like it's in a
Yeah.
weird spot. We'll see.
I
You
remember
know,
something had gotten announced like in the spring, right? That it had gotten
yeah, no, there's two directors,
yeah.
Severin Franz.
Yes, yes,
Oh
yes,
my
yes.
God. No. Veronica Franz, Severin Fiala. Franz and Fiala is the short version.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, aunt, nephew, Austrian directing team.
hmm
I met them just about a year ago.
Yeah.
My wife and I met them in at a wine bar in Boston because they happened to be in town, and they were a blast. They were so much fun,
That's
and they're
awesome.
so dark. I really hope they get to. I really do hope they get to make Head Full of Ghosts because I really like the screenplay.
Yeah.
It doesn't pull punches. uh, yeah, they have like a wicked sense of humor too, but also like they do really grim, disturbing stuff. So
Good. Yeah. It's always good whenever you feel like it's in good hands. I mean, anything can happen. I mean, I've
sure,
heard enough about how all this
yeah,
goes, but it's still a good feeling whenever you get to meet them and you're like, oh, I see something that this is probably going to be okay. It's a
Yeah.
good feeling.
And I am in school looms in September, but the school's gonna let me do like a lesser schedule,
Yeah,
which is nice of them. Yeah.
good, good. Well, that's a lot of things to look forward to for the rest
Yeah,
of
I
the
guess that's
year.
a lot. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, just
No, no, it's great. I'm all for it, man. Again, thank you so much for just answering all my questions. Is there anything that we did not talk about that you want to either bring up now, talk about now, mention, anything?
um no, I mean maybe just to hit home that really think long and hard before you use AI. If it's,
Hmm.
generative for large language models or art in particular,
Yeah.
just to publicly acknowledge the amazing work that my lawyers did and are doing, and Christopher Golden in particular, because he's been on multiple
Hmm.
cases and he's continuing to go forward, and he's really been, and seeing him when he's talking, like I've been in rooms with judges and other people, other lawyers, and just hearing him talk, how eloquently
Yeah.
and passionately he goes at it. I hope I hope history shows that Chris Golden was the hero that we deserved and needed.
Yeah. Well, that's yeah. That's it's so important whenever you have somebody like that who has the ability to kind of convey the gravity of the situation and y'all's feelings behind it. But yeah, I'm always saying hire artists. I mean, I just hired Chris Pantier to do like my logo for my podcast, and I was thrilled with what he did. He's like just created this thing that I didn't even know could exist, and it was the coolest thing. And that's what happens when you use like real people for real art. They come up
100%.
with things you couldn't even think about. So. Yeah,
Right.
I'm totally with you and behind you on that sentiment. But thank you so much for talking to me
Yeah,
about
thank you,
another
Anna. My
and
pleasure.
all of your work. Another comes out on July 22nd. I think everybody, regardless of their age, should read it. So I'm really looking forward to everybody getting their hands on it.
Unless they're
And
like three,
okay,
maybe
yeah.
not. Yeah. We could say 8 and older. How's that? Or 7. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'll get behind that. 8 and older.
Yeah.
We'll set the bar there. Oh man, thank you so much, Paul. And until next time, I'll see you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
A huge thank you to Paul once again for his time and for humoring all of my questions from his most recent release with Another to all the way back to Head Full of Ghosts, Disappearance at Devil's Rock, and, kind of everything in between. I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with him. I think that he's probably one of my favorite writers who's working right now. I don't think that there is a human emotion I haven't experienced while reading his books. So I highly recommend all of them, and Another is no exception to that rule. Like I said, this is a middle grade novel, but I think that anybody except 3-year-olds, as Paul points out, should read it. I think it's just a really cool book that handles a lot of kind of heavier topics with a really graceful hand. So you should all check it out regardless of age, unless you're a toddler. With that being said, I'll go ahead and wrap this up. I also want to take a moment to recognize how much love and support I received for my Stephen Graham Jones interview that I released last week. Um, Again, huge thanks to Stephen for sitting with me to begin with, and then to everybody else who offered a kind word about it, who reshared it. It is by far probably the most popular episode that I've had on this podcast thus far, and it's just really cool to see it kind of grow and succeed in the way that it has in this last week. So thank you so much to all of you who spread the word, who were kind about it, who reshared, just everything. It means so, so much. I am still working on my schedule throughout the summer, and as soon as I have everything ironed out, I will make a cute little graphic and share that on social media so that way everybody can know what to expect in the coming weeks. But yeah,